block per second to 10 blocks per second, there is a slight increase of resources required for that node. So currently for a 1 blocks per second node on average, you're probably going to need a quad core CPU, which is pretty much any CPU built in the last five, even maybe 10, 10 years is probably a stretch, but the last 5 years. And you're going to need at least 4 gigs to 6 gigs of RAM, right? Now, to put into perspective, that amount of resources just for that is so minuscule. Like my phone has more resources than that right now, right? So that's where we're coming from, right? And as we move to 10 blocks per second, definitely the resources jump up a little bit, but the core contributors are really focused on optimizing that as much as possible. So, when I look at, the 10 blocks per second nodes, I think for in my testing and from what I've learned, you need definitely about 6 to 8 gigs of RAM. I think that the initial block sync will freeze if you have any less than 8 gigs, but then after that, it drops down to a much lower amount of requirement speed. So, um, and look, to put it in perspective though, even that 8 gigs of RAM, a quad core processor, and 300 to 500 gigs of storage for a standalone node is really not much at all. And so when you put it in perspective of what the other projects out there require for their node offering, it is still so minuscule. It's nothing, right? So yeah, there is going to be some requirement increasing in certain requirements, but I think if you zoom out and you compare it to the other projects, it is still super, super, super approachable and something that most people have lying around on their old hardware in their house anyway.
Okay, no problem.
32, 32 Ethereum, crazy. Definitely not. Yeah, look, it's easy. Casper NG. Jump on their website, download the software, play around with it. It also comes with a beautiful visualizer that you can use and a wallet if you want to use it as well. But yeah, play around with it.
Nice. Lavendi. Oh,
Hey, Lavendi. Hey, thanks for joining. Oh yeah,
yeah.
cool.
Uh, yeah. Yeah, Lavendi, blockchain banter on Monday nights. Tune in. And Chris,
Yeah,
did you
awesome.
get did Chris Hutchinson, did he have his interview with you to become a Casper ambassador, or did you start around the same time?
So, unfortunately, I did not get the brilliant honor of interviewing Chris. That was a little bit. I think he joined just shortly after me. But definitely, if anyone is not aware, Chris and the guys from Blockchain Banter do amazing work. So definitely check them out. Lavendi is launching his new media company soon. I think it is Crumpet Media. So I'm sure there's going to be some exciting things coming out of that side. And yeah, definitely check them out.
I picked up my crumbs today. If anybody's not aware, you can pick up 10,000 crumbs every day from Crumpet Media to your wallet, and basically it's going to be a media platform, isn't it? If you like somebody's story, you can tip them Crumpet. So it's a good idea. See
So
how it goes.
British, so British.
Crumpets,
Crumpets,
yeah, yeah.
crumpet, crumpet. No, I picked up some crumbs because I want to support the guys. Get in there, see what they're gonna put out to the community, and that's the beauty, right? People are starting to just kind of branch out and say, and so they're going to build their own things, their own media companies and whatever, and it's awesome. So cool, good work, guys.
That's for Cat Daddy, but he's gone. I missed Friday night cast cocktails. He did a live stream last night where he was having a drink and just a casual thing. It was good. I went into it.
It's cool.
Crypto Times 101. Caspa is fast enough to have smart contracts as a layer two. Smart contract is computational heavy, so you have the best of both worlds with minimal delays because the layer one sequencer is so fast and efficient.
100% agree, definitely, and that's exactly the situation here. Rather than bloat the layer one, We keep the sequencing lean and mean and fast and reliable, and we put that computational heavy layer onto the layer twos. But the beauty is that they are in constant communication with the layer one, and so everything goes to the layer one first in sort of a base roll up sort of view, and then goes to the layer two. So Casper benefits, miners benefit, everyone benefits. It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's the problem with Ethereum, isn't it? The base layer is too slow, so trans has to be done on this layer two, is it? Or
Yeah, so I mean, I say this from the outside. The way that I see Ethereum operating is definitely because of the speed or the lack thereof speed on Ethereum. They obviously have roll-ups to enable other networks to offer that speed to their users, but they build their own sequencer. And so if you imagine this, right, the concept is you have Ethereum, then you have your layer two on top of it. Now, the layer one is not fast enough to, allow their users to do insane speeds, right? Because what is it? There's only um, uh, the speed is just not fast enough, right? So you have the layer two build their own sequencer, which is essentially guaranteeing the series of events when they occurred and when they occurred and who did what, blah blah blah. And then they take all those events, they verify them themselves, their own sequencer, and then every so often, maybe once an hour, once a minute, once every 5 minutes, whatever, they send those transactions, those events bundled into one transaction back to the layer one. They send it there, and you might have a million transactions that occurred on the layer two, right? But as far as the layer one is concerned, it just sees one transaction. And so when I say it has an element of kind of parasitic nature, it's basically the layer two is benefiting from building on top of Ethereum by using it, but it is not able to actually give back to the network because it's really only doing one thing every now and again, right? So yeah, that's my oversimplification of what is going on in the Ethereum ecosystem. And for a long time, they have definitely spoken about how they want to, have based rollups, which is the concept of having the layer one operate as the sequencer, and they remove the layer two sequencer, and the layer two just operates as computational layer, but they just haven't achieved that yet.
yeah,
So yeah, it remains to be seen.
okay. Cover stuff back on. Casper should become the default and easy choice to build things on.
100% agree. It'll be the base layer, and what I love to say, the ultimate sequencer, the ultimate layer one sequencer that has enough throughput, enough capability, very grand view, and who knows if we'll see it in our lifetime, but that's at least what I think of Casper, and that's how I view it.
XRP is fool's gold. um, but some people don't like the name Sparkle.
Hey, well, I mean, the name is the name, but the tech is the tech
Yeah.
underneath. So who cares, really? Call it what you want.
XRP is not going to make it. I think this is all coming in because they just had. I think somebody just posted XRP on its own earlier.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, could Sparkle be more masculine?
I don't know. That's up to you, Adam.
Yeah,
You're welcome to give it your own name. That's fine.
yeah. Cast is so special. The technology and the fair launch is the best out there. That's Casper Queen.
Yeah, that's a cool point, and I'll just point that out that I'm not trying to advocate for people to go and focus on Bitcoin, do as you please, but in the Bitcoin world, these little things called what I mentioned earlier, it's like the bit axe, right? I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but they call it a lottery miner, right? And the reason it's a lottery miner is it has a very, very, very small amount of hash rate because they've literally extracted a single chip off a hash board. And so to put in perspective, a Bitcoin miner has maybe three hash boards, and on each hash board is maybe 50 chips, right? So you can imagine that one chip has a very, very small amount of hash rate power. They've harvested that. and they've placed it onto their own single board computer like this, and it just mined with a very, 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 very low amount of resources. And so, essentially, what that is, they call it a lottery miner because it uses a couple of watts of energy, but the potential is that it might hit a block. And so, I think in the last 12 months or so, there's been a couple of bit axes that have hit blocks, right? And the chances of that, I remember I spoke to Shy about this, and he started like, it's like watching like the Rain Man. His brain starts going off into thinking about, numbers and stuff like that. He's like, the chances of it happening is just, insanely difficult, but the chances of that happening on Casper is super, super, super appealing, right? So again, any smart individuals out there in the community who could look at the BitAxe project, which is completely open source, and look at how we could adopt that for Casper, definitely go check it out. The hardware is open source, the software is open source. If there's a way that we can adopt some of those methods and utilize that to create some open source Casper miners, then let's do it. So yeah, thought I'd shout that out.
Casper will be the first technology to prevent manipulation in high frequency trading. It can prevent HFT from exploiting order flow. This is revolutionary in all finance.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the speed is something that has always been a huge factor with traditional finance. So even like back in the day, right, where you had the stock exchange, right? So you had the stock exchange where obviously things are traded, but you would have a series of traders who connect to that stock exchange via computers who are outside of the exchange, right? And so they'll be trading with their computers. And so essentially, there has to be to ensure that the trades are executed in the right order at the right time. The speed is critical, right? So it's critical for a trader using a terminal to be able to execute trades at the same sort of time as everyone else. And so with Casper, because of the throughput, because of the blocks arriving currently every second and soon 10 times a second, the speed and the finality will make it so that hopefully in the future, which is kind of what I believe my understanding, my simplified understanding of a lot of the interest in the very, very high block rate of 50 blocks per second, maybe even 100 blocks per second, is to really combat that MEV issue. That issue where people can see orders of things being placed, and with bots or machine learning, they can trade against that to benefit themselves. So 100% agree. There's going to be a lot of amazing things that are going to be built on top of that, and yeah, couldn't agree more. That's it. Never resistance.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Dreamcast was
Dreamcast.
the best.
Definitely, I love it. I love Dreamcast. I love my retro gaming. I have a bunch of game consoles, so definitely agree with you there. Dreamcast is awesome. So yeah.
One last question. What real world use cases will drive Caspa's mass adoption? Thank you for all the answers.
Yeah, no problem. And thank you for all the questions. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, Bashar, or Bachar. I'm sorry. Either way, look, what can drive the real world use cases for Casper? So it comes back to what I kind of keep harping on about. I see Casper as the base layer that anyone can build on top of. And so any real world case that people have traditionally looked at crypto, looked at a blockchain, a DLT, and said, okay, we want to build on top of this. But there's particular reasons why we can't. So, some people might be looking to build something that needs ultimate decentralization and censorship resistance, and needs speed. But, traditionally they've looked back at other projects, maybe Bitcoin, and said, well, it has the decentralization, it has the security, but it doesn't have the speed, right? And so people have looked at other projects out there and vice versa, and ultimately seen all that. Casper comes along and really nails all of those requirements. and it enables people who have maybe traditionally who are from the Web 2 world and looked at how can I build something on top of crypto, but they found one reason or another that they couldn't build on top of it. And so Casper's mass adoption will be driven by the fact that people can build anything that they can think of. And so the really, really, really cool notion of that is nowadays it's actually a lot more real than people think, because development has become so accessible for the average person. Like even someone who doesn't understand how to develop things can go leverage AI using like Cursor or some other platform like that and create things that are in their mind that they've dreamt of that maybe they didn't know how to execute. And so I think we're at a really interesting crossroads where the technology is at the point that can enable internet-like speed on crypto, but also the ability and accessibility for people to actually build on top of it makes it just insane. And so, again, it comes back to my little crystal ball of what I think is going to happen. But I think that there's going to be a lot of building, and I think a lot of it is hopefully going to happen on Casper.
Somebody is sticking up for Aspect. Shout out to Aspect. He's so capable. He can name it whatever he wants.
Aspect is absolutely amazing. And when I met him in person in Australia, we had many chats that went on for hours with him, expressing his passion for not only Casper but nurturing and helping new developers to learn how to program. Right? Like I'm not a developer. I moonlight as a developer sometimes and play around with things and try to have fun, which is ultimately what everyone should be doing. But he really is passionate about educating other developers, and so I think in his spare time is looking at how can I bring up the next generation of developers. So definitely, if you ever see him, ask him about it. You better have a lot of time because he will spend a long time talking about it. And I think that's for good reason because it's really the lifeblood of what drives him. So definitely love Anton. He's an absolute pillar of the community. So definitely cool.
Well, Casper Queen. I love the name Sparkle.
Definitely. Yeah, it's awesome.
You rock. We all need more sparkle in our lives. It's just a slagging competition going on. Queens would like sparkle. What's the difference between proof of stake and Visa? Visa
Famous,
is it famous and
maybe?
make money.
Visa and make money.
Men don't like sparkle.
Hey, man, look, if it makes us talk about it, then it's already winning. Like
Hmm?
marketing or, this type of approach is getting that into the psyche of people, right? And so right now we have a whole host of people, whether you like it or not, who are thinking about Sparkle and going, wow, it is this thing that's coming with Casper, and they're going to remember it. So, whether you like it or not, you're talking about it right now. So yeah, it's cool. Yeah, right. I mean, yeah.
I don't. You probably know what you're talking about there, do you?
Yeah, so it actually is using ESP. So it's ESP32, I believe it is. So it's not actually a Raspberry Pi, but it's very similar. It is a single board, computer, and it essentially enables people to take the chip and put it onto that board, and yeah, it's cool. Yeah, definitely, yeah, I definitely want to encourage people because I think there is some miners that, the older ones that are going to be looking at their retirement schedule, right? And maybe, the KS ones, particularly who are probably quite low hash rate and high energy usage that are going to be looking for a new home. And that was really one of the benefits of the BitAxe project, which, really, really awesome that they built that. And I think one of the main contributors is a guy by the name of Scott. He has basically enabled people to take old hardware and repurpose that hardware. And so I definitely would love to see that on the Casper network. If there's any brilliant minds out there, reach out to me. Let's try and make this happen. But otherwise, yeah, it'd be cool to see it happen.
Cool. And say TPH and 920. I work for Boeing and I'm pushing aviation to build its value chain, supplies, manufacturing, energy, transport, logistics on Casper.
Cool. Keep it up, man. That's how we make a difference in the community. Like, if you see an opportunity for Casper to add value to your business, to your organization, to your foundation, to whatever, get out there and do it. You don't need to ask permission. You don't need to see if Mr. Sompolinski will give you authority to go do this or do that. You just go do it. And so, yeah, love it, man. Keep it up.
Thanks, Luke. We've got to the end of the questions. BTM, do you have any more questions? We let Luke go. Yes.
Hey, look, I love to join you guys. You're running a great space here with the community, and yeah, happy to jump in anytime if there's any value that I can add.
Thanks, Luke. We have one more question sneaked in there. I had a question. Will Sparkle lower the slippage costs when swapping True Tantrum on the 1.5 smart contracts?
Um, I don't really know how to answer that question because it's kind of got a few elements there, and it's what tangent slippage costs. I unfortunately do not have the answer to this, and I'm not really quite 100% sure what the question is, but um let's wait and see. That's my answer.
Okay. Well, one more question. Crescendo, is it going to be the end of April or the start of May, do you think? Any inside information, any alpha there before you go?
I mean, from what I've heard, it's just what is it, Live? There's that countdown that Caspador has made, and currently looking at 44 days for the hard fork. I think that is pretty accurate from what I've heard. Maybe I'm not saying like 44 days, 14 hours, 29 minutes, and 6 seconds, or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I, but I do think that that's pretty accurate. I think that's what I've heard that the amazing contributors are working towards. So we've got, I think, the mainnet release coming in. I'm looking at it right now, so I don't just have this like like photographic memory. But I think in 14 days is the mainnet release, and what that does is that brings with it the code that will activate the hard fork later on. Okay, so get the mainnet release out there. All the nodes will update their software or put into the network that in 44 days the hard fork will occur, and we'll see that lovely little that little graphic that appears that says
Mm.
10 blocks per second activated. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it was, Fish Tuna, Ilal, is that how you say his name? Um,
IL, yeah, I think I'm not sure. Sorry,
yeah,
IL, if
it,
I've yeah.
yeah. It's the only network that changes. It doesn't shut down. It does it live, isn't it? It goes from 1 block to 10 blocks per second live without stopping, without skipping a beat, isn't it?
I mean,
Or is that-
To be honest, I'm not aware of any other network that
Mm,
have increased the speed. At least, definitely not for proof of work in the way that is going to be achieved here. I'd love to learn about others if there is, but as far as I'm aware, Casper is the only proof of work network that is essentially turning up the speed on the network. So yeah, it's a huge event. It is absolutely huge. So definitely monumental the amount of work that the core team and the contributors and everyone involved that have put into it. And we're going to be seeing history in the making. So yeah, get excited.
very, yeah, it is very exciting.
So so Casper has never stopped creating blocks. There has never been since launch, as far as I'm aware. There has never been a situation where blocks have not been created. I don't believe. But in those situations where, for example, when a KRC20 launch occurred, there was some technology that existed on the outside of the Casper network, like wallets and maybe exchanges that weren't, um, maybe no exchanges because they weren't trading in KRC20 yet, but there was infrastructure that needed to potentially update its code or change its code. And so one of those examples was, a certain wallet that had some code in it that just wasn't kind of set up correctly, and that's totally fine. And people do code all the time, and it just meant that from a visual perspective, people weren't able to purchase KRC20 tokens or something like that. But when you look at the actual network underlying everything, the blocks keep getting created, and the network still functions as normal. So yeah,
Um,
definitely. That's yeah, that's fine. Exactly. Still mining, still seeing the blocks, still seeing them tick over. That is literally the example of a decentralized network. You have to take the good with the bad, and the bad is the fact that sometimes standalone developers who are doing their own thing, which is amazing because without developers the community wouldn't exist. But they're doing their own thing, they're building their own thing, and it's whether or not you want to place your trust in them as a third party that's building for Casper, not building the actual Casper code base with what you do. And so, things will happen. We'll break a few eggs for those sort of external projects that build on top of Casper. But the main takeaway is that the main network, Casper, the core protocol, the blocks keep getting created at one every second, and soon 10 every second. So yeah.
I have one more question for you, Luke, and I'll let you go. It's another probably a crystal ball question, but crescendo and smart contracts. Like, do you think there's people lined up to leave other chains and come over to build on Caspa, or that are waiting to do it, waiting for all this to happen, or do you think it'll be like more a gradual over time kind of thing?
Look, I think anecdotally, I have spoken to different projects over the last year who have taken a bit of a view of Casper. They've looked at it as somewhere that maybe they want to move. Like I spoke to a project a while back who was literally moving away from Ethereum. They were EVM. They were done with what they had seen on that network, and they were looking for a new home. Now, unfortunately, timelines didn't line up with them for them to kind of look at Casper as being their new home. But I think that is not an isolated situation. There's going to be a lot of people from other communities who are going to look at Casper, and they might take a couple of different approaches, and look at how they where they want their new home to be. And I really, really, really think that Casper is going to be that new home. And yeah, 100% agree. I just had a message from the man himself, Mr. Coder of Stuff. Sorry to kind of force
Oh,
this in
wow.
here, but we expect to be on time for release end of March. Activation end of
Mm,
April slash early May. So definitely, he's personally pushing for end of April. So that you heard it here from the man himself, the coder of stuff. That's the timeline.
that's great. That's massive alpha at the end there. Brilliant. Yeah.
Huge
Yeah.
shout out to Kodo. He attends all of the spaces. Always see him around, taking part in the community and getting involved. So, love your work, man, and keep it up. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Thanks, Luke, for coming on. I hope you'll come back on again. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope we can keep it. Apologies for keeping you 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Mate, I totally am fine to talk about Casper. As you could tell, I could probably talk about Casper underwater.
Yeah.
So don't you worry. And I'm sorry if I have waffled on for too long during this space. But yeah, thank you for having me, guys. It's been a pleasure.
No, that's brilliant. No, I appreciate it, Luke. Thanks for coming on and talking to us, and we'll speak to you soon. Thanks everybody for watching as well in the comments.
Thanks, everyone. Been a pleasure.
See ya.
See you guys. We're not live. Thanks, guys.
No, gone. Gone. Okay. Thanks for that, Luke. Appreciate it. That was great.
That's fun, man. I love talking Casper. So
Yeah.
um sorry if it's a yeah, just go off on a tangent there, but yeah, that's
No, that's
it.
great. Yeah, that's great. It gives you time to think, what you're going to ask next or what's going on. But yeah.